We do know how much time you're taking out of your day, so we do appreciate you being here. Hopefully you'll take a lot away with you today. I also understand it's school holidays as well, so keeping with kids. Thank you again. So today we're just going to look through some of the updates of what's been going on in the background of Revizto. We constantly update the software, so we'll have a look at that. First of all, a little bit about me and the CS team. So I'm the CS director for APAC, that's customer success. So basically my role is to make sure you as customers get the most out of the software. How we do that with our awesome team. So we've got this team, we've got Michael Richards, who's the New Zealand representative. So hopefully he's being in touch with all of you. If he's not, then please reach out. We've got Duncan and Matt and Ian, who are based over the ditch in Australia. Ian's just come on board recently as our infrastructure expert. So we do a lot of infrastructure projects in the APAC region. We kind of lead the globe with this. So we've actually gone out to industry and appointed someone there. So we're actually part of a bigger team. There's 26 in the global team. Well, 24 of those people have come from industry. So we're all got a wealth of industry knowledge from structural engineering, architecture, MEP, buildings, and trades and such. So it's not just our region that we tap into, it's the global network as well. So we've got an issue that we can't resolve, and we tap into these other networks as well. Just want to touch on some of the stuff we've been going through in the background. So standardizing the workflows with what we're calling codified coordination templates. So the templates are now available online. So for those of you who've noticed, there's a little download button now on your workspace. If you click on this, you will get to all of the templates. So what's inside the templates? We've got a BEP addendum. We've got some search sets in there, clash tests, and then some other templates as well. So all we're trying to do is help industry to get the most out of the software by making it as easy as possible to basically spin up a project. We've actually got this down to less than 5 minutes. So this is a new project. We're loading the templates, all search sets, all the stamps, and start to automate the process within 5 minutes. So you can obviously adjust these templates to your company and things like that, but it's more of a starting block of you the right tools for the job. So what's inside? We've got a BEP addendum. So it's got coordination strategies, LOD, things like micro versus micro clash tests, which we'll have a look in there. So it's not to replace your BEP, it's more of a slide into the back. So you've got a starting block there. The clash matrix, which is an important part. You probably all got one of these in your company already, but what we've done is we've sorted out the clash matrix with the clash automation and the search sets and the stamps. So you can basically load all of these into your project and start to run all of the clash automation and strategies straight away. So it really streamlines that process. Stamps, again, we've standardized all of these. The stamps are linked to the clash tests. So you could start to automate all of the process right out of the box within the 5 minutes is what we've been telling people here. Search sets, so these are all based off Revit families. So Revit categories. So literally you can load these in and start to get some good results out of the tools straight from the start here. We've also linked it to IFC categories as well inside of Revit. So depending if you put an IFC workflow or credit workflow, it will work for both of these. And then the search sets are based on a kind of cascading system. By that we mean we've got the high level, and which is the models, and these are cascading down into categories, properties, sets, and then finally clash tests at the bottom. By this, what we mean with the hierarchy is you can load it into different projects just by changing the model, which is the high level, top level search set. Everything is hung off this, so you literally just change the name of the project at the top level, and everything will work on that. So this is why it's so quick and efficient. We can get a project up and running quickly. I guess the clash tests is a big part of this. We've got over 150 tests in here, pre-assigned with different templates. We've got set up for architect or structure, MEP, things like that. All the stamps of load in are all associated with tests as well. So again, you've got that efficiency in there. Properties based on Revit properties, we can very quickly get QTOs and the project itself by using the selection inspector. So it's a really efficient way. With the QSs, we've got some QSs down south who are using Revizto to get the quants out of the model. Filters, simple one, but again, it's standardizing the way that we work. These are inside of the issue tracker here. So we create filters for architect, bid manager, doing P structure, things like that. Appearance templates, another easy one, but we've aligned some of the templates inside of the appearance templates is like BIM colors. So it's just applying colorization to that NEA. It's very simple to do, but we've standardized and now we've got a webinar coming out in a couple of weeks, I think, or we're actually showcasing what we've done with in Repos. So keep your eyes out for that. Simple ones like architectural light counts, the things that you can standardize across the board. So by 15, so people who've opened up Revizto this morning, you will notice that this hot off the press. We actually released it overnight. So what I'm going to show you today is just one of the new updates. It's basically the scheduler. Scheduler 2.0 is what we call it. So the old scheduler you could do a lot with, but there's some things that we've added to the new scheduler which enhances it all. So ends up we've used the old scheduler. Anton. So what this enables you to do is automate a lot of the process. So you get the efficiencies out of the software. The main downside of the old schedulers, you couldn't run Clash. So that was a manual process. What we've done with the new scheduler, this is new user interface, is actually giving you the ability to create tasks inside of the new scheduler. So you can still upgrade to 5.15 and have the old scheduler. It's an upgrade process. So when you click on new scheduler, it's going to ask you what you want to do. You can actually migrate all of your old tasks into the new scheduler. And if for whatever reason you want to push it back, you can go back to the old scheduler as well. So it's a completely new interface. It's web compatible as well. We'll have a look at that in a second. You can view all the tasks in one central location. Things like you can see what's coming up, you can see what's failed, which is a big update. So you've got a history log in there. You can set up automated emails. So if the updates upload does fail, it will email you and let you know. But it's being rebuilt from the ground upwards. I guess the biggest one, the updates is the Clash automation mode. So now we've got the ability to push bottles up and actually run the clashes as well. So this diagram here is kind of showing you what we now can do. So push the models overnight, and we can run the clash, or we can run all the clashes, select the clashes, and then sync with the issue tracker. Obviously, we run the reporting and the dashboards, which come out for that automatically as well. A really, really powerful tool with the upgrades here. Just quickly show how easy it is to create a clash task inside the new scheduler. So this is very simple. Well, we're just going to create it for architecture. So the clash is already set up inside of the project. What we'll do here, we just day the task itself, and then pick the actual clash test or the project and the clash test that we want to run. Super easy. We've got all the different settings here. All of the stamps, obviously, the are associated with the clash test itself. So these are going to come through. And you can choose whether you want to sync in the issue tracker as well. all of the old platform with the time and the day when you run it, things like this. The final one at the bottom, command line settings. So we do have the ability, which we'll have a look at in a second, to actually string these tasks together. So what I mean by that is you've got the cascading kind of tasks again. So we can look at uploading the architectural model. If it's a success, upload the structural model. If it fails, send an email to your BIM manager, the BBC team, saying that's failed, and they cancel the task so that the structural model won't upload. If the structural model uploads, the actual model uploads fine, do the structure, and then do the task, which is then run the clash and stick the issues with the issue tracker. So you've got a fully automated process now, whereas before you had to run it as a manual process of running the clash and then syncing with the issue tracker. So it's viewable on the website as well. So this is your workspace. So everything is now online. You can have a look at all the clash tests. You've got admin rights. You will start to interrogate what's going on. You've got the history of all of that, which is super fun to see what's happening with the project. Give you way more control and visibility of what's actually happening with the scheduler as a whole. What this enables you to do, and if anybody's on LinkedIn and knows Anton, strongly recommend Anton Shaw here at front from Mahoney. Have a look at his posts. He posted something about 3 weeks ago. We were chatting about it earlier, and it's all about supercharging your projects or your project team with automation. So I think in his post is saved 21,000 hours, and the export of 3 million PDFs. This is all using automated machines. With this new scheduler, we could take that to the next level, not having to actually look at the individual clashes and then sync it with the issue tracker. I highly recommend checking him out and look at his little video that he's got there. So it's a way of, as you as a company or clients to save money. And we're not talking theoretical on this entity. We be realistic. The amount of time and effort you take to actually save on a day or a weekly basis. So that's just one of the items in 515. There's a lot of smaller items that I'm not going to touch on today, but the schedule is the main one, so do check it out to do that. Right, Matt. Obviously, we've got a heap of wish list items in the background. This is actually our internal Trello board. When you as clients come to us and say, actually, we've got this wish list. I know not Eva is in the room. She's given us a long email yesterday of this is what some tweaks which we want. We love this because we actually feeding back to the development team without you as clients actually say, this is okay, but could be better to do that. Please give us your feedback. We didn't listen. I have a weekly catch up with the dev team on a Thursday, and we discuss what's happened in the week with clients. So your feedback is feeding directly into them. And then it goes onto the Trello board, and then we look at developing that. So what are we developing over the next 12 months? There's a lot of big ticket items. The main ones, I'm not going to go into the weeds, but these are the main 3 ones that we're looking at as the permissions. We're doing a permissions overhaul. You're going to have the ability to lock down a lot more of your roles inside of the project. Big one, construction companies mocking down 2D drawings so the people in site command see that you put construction drawings. You don't really see the work progress drawings. That's coming. 2D improvements. We recognize that probably the 2D side of especially the markup tools inside of Revizto are not the best. So we take a step back and say, right, what did industry actually want? What's on there? What's in the market at the moment? We know Bluebeam, a lot of you will use. It's out there, leaving way. But imagine if you did have to go into Bluebeam to mark up with having tool chests and all the separate tools in there, and then bring it back into the Vista. What we will plan to do is basically have that functionality inside of Revizto, so your team can just stay in one spot all the time. So it's a single source of truth and all of the information in there. Like you're not swapping football platforms. Integrations, we're working quite hard with a lot of other companies. I guess Apex is a big integration that we're working on over the next 12 months. That will become 2D upgrades. If you've got your phone handy, we are taking feedback of what actually people want at the moment. So if you do have any ideas or thoughts, please give your feedback, scan the QR code, or just ask one of the team afterwards. Red Academy. So I don't know if anybody's had a look at this already, but this is our LMS, our learning management system. So we've got kind of two halves of the brain. We've got the CST with our knowledge, global knowledge that you can tap into. We've also got the LMS system, which is an online learning platform. What you can do with this, you can follow some of the essentials, which we've now got the 2D, 3D, and ABI essentials courses. These are free, so you can go online, you can run through the courses, stuff and stuff, have a look through. Coming soon, we've got the issue tracker and the site app, which I think Michael's on with at the moment. So these will come through. So essentially what we're looking at is helping you as clients to train your team. So it's not all down to you to do the internal training. You can point teams to the online portal and then you can start to train them as well. We've got the certifications 1 and 2, which is aligned at the moment. This is just a way of measure it where your team is at. So they are paid behind the platform where it's very cheap. It's like $100 US or $2 US at the 1 and 2. Cert 3 is coming next year. Our Rev conference, it'll be a lot more in-depth, a lot more tricky, I would say. But it's more for your BIM managers and things like that. This is the roadmap. What's in red is what we've released already, the essentials courses. We've got 400 videos that we're producing at the moment, so there's going to be a wealth of knowledge in this the Red Academy over the next 12 months. Cert 1 and 2 is done. Obviously 3 is coming next year. What we will do is create some kind of swim lanes for different disciplines. So we've got your general contractor, for instance, might have a set of videos that you can follow along with your design team or your owner or things like that. It's live. Go have a look. If you go around Revizto camp, just log in, and it's the essentials course is free. We've got a shout out to Jason Howden, which I'm sure most of you in the room will probably know. We'll be doing some percolating collaboration podcasts. There's a few people in the room who are already on it. Brad been on it, Anton's been on it. Jonathan Dunn from South West Photography, he's here. He's been on it. Julie Jenner. So we've got quite a few people from New Zealand that have been on there. Some great insights to the whole of the industry, especially New Zealand. I think I keep stressing this to clients, is like New Zealand in a whole punches way above his weight in the global market. We see this, Jason sees this. Jason's been around the world and talked to various companies, design, construction, and he's fed it back to us. And, basically, what we're doing here as a country is way above the benchmark for the rest of the world. So we need to shout about it and get out there. So, which Jason's trying to do sort of a podcast as well. Final shout out Revo, which is our global conference, which is coming out in February next year in Washington. Probably not the best location for February next year, but hopefully. There's a few people in the room that are speaking. Either's the speaker, Brad is the keynote next year. Big shout out to Brad. Anton's speaking. So it's really good friendly conference. I know keep being involved and to the conference. So yeah, it'd be great to get you along for that as well.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Sean Wang. I'm working in Naylor Love as Group Digital Managers. And today we'd like to talk about Revizto and Christ Church Cathedral Revizto and BIM projects. I think the first thing first, I'd like get Daryl to give us a bit of a background on the projects to give us a good of overseeing the job, what's going on.
So as many of you know, the Christ Church Cathedral, just across the way here, we couldn't get inside the cathedral. We had to do what was called stabilization work from the outside and make it so it couldn't fall over, pretty much. So in very brief terms, I can talk about this for a long time, but in brief terms, we had to do the stabilization, making it stronger from the outside before we could even get inside. Whilst we're doing stabilization, the design for the reinstatement had to proceed because of timelines. The design was going to take a certain amount of time. So there's very limited as-built information. So the design was done without full as-built information. It was done with some point cloud. There was gaps in it. The design was pretty good. Things lined up pretty well, but nothing was perfect. And there's a lot of unknowns because no one had been inside. So the design was completed. It was consented about the same time we decided to start doing the reinstatement works. So there's a lot of challenges around that. And a lot of the challenges are how are we going to make this design fit. Sean and our team recognized the usefulness of Revizto, and I'll let Sean talk about how you set up Revizto for the project to do that. And then I'll give you a little bit of demonstration how I used it from a builder's perspective at the end of our presentation.
I think a little bit on the project challenge from the BIM perspectives when we acknowledge this project. When I'm not starting on the project at the beginning, but when I take over the job, there was a few things that could lead to be a very high potential risk. For example, the design, drawing documentations, model are created based on the limited as-built informations. So I understand consultants did their best they can, but it is fact was no one actually access the building, not too sure how the demolition parts gonna change, update complete the demolitions and what's kind of left, and there's any potential unknown items we need to be find out. And grid line set out details unclear as well, which is also another big thing we need to work out through this journey. And during construction, there also a heavy reliance on the contractor and subcontractors to manage their own geometries and their setup. So we, for this, this third one was, we kind of, it's probably the quite high risk to let the subcontractor to manage their own setup without any good control from the main contractor side of it. So I'll come to that about how we overcome those three challenges. So, but it is a risk, but it's also to open the gate is a great opportunity to we set up the right workflow from the start to using BIM to mitigate the risk, to help the future construction. So what we have done, the first thing was, as you can see, the grid line is unclear. So the only thing we can most trusted is the point cloud. So the point cloud will giving us the good as-built info. So we aligned the model as best as we can to in the right fit for the point cloud. So we can tell you was when we agree with the angle was the best fit for the model and the scan is 0.11 degree, which is we down to very high accurate to align the model to the scan. So then the second one is we establish the construction site control model. This is the key part for us to able to manage the subcontractors and consultant model in the central space to providing the good coordination and accurate information for doing any on-site as-built or on-site set-out or grid set-out. All the builder's layout works, and we are based on our own site control model. So to establish that, we have two establishment. So that also this establishment will be the foundations for we are using Revizto. So the first thing is from the digital point of view, because as the general contractor, as main contractor, we've been dealing with lots of different parties. Like from consultant point of view, like we've been working with consultant, we're also working with many subcontractors. So they've been using a lot of different authoring softwares like Revit, Teclas, sometimes the Vectorworks. We want to make sure we want to pull them together in the same place and we start to coordinate them. We'll make sure the information they have been feeding them is accurate and they're feeding back to us is no any mistake or any errors. So what we have done, we understand from the Revit point of view, a lot of consulting using shared coordinate stuff, but from a lot of non-Revit user point of view, they're using their own coordination system to get the model in the right coordinates. But to able to establish the site control, we're using model origin to able to bridge for any non-Revit user, non-Revit software. So which means we can get the for example, I'll give you an example like a Tekla. If Tekla was exporting as IFC, we want to able to bring the IFC into our model in the right time. We don't want to manually move any IFC the model. And what we actually done is we publish our site control model. We tell them that's our defined survey data origin along with the model origin. We send to them and they update their model origin along with us. So then this whole system was set up we're using one control points, one model origin to be able to talk different model from different software. And I'm not gonna spend a lot of time to doing that, but is some of the way what we try to do on these projects. And also there's a thing was like when you set up the digital stuff, digital platform, the site control model down, there's a one gap is we want to make sure everything what we have done, for example, we produced any builder's layout or set out from the Revit file what we have done in the site control file. We want to make sure how the builder actually built it on site. Is anything that we need to get the information back to us to say what actually they has been using the drawing to. For example, if the wall being set out from a grid line of 500 millimeter, so we want to say how actually the builder has been built on that distance. So because the site has got lots of different conditions, they might be different. So we need to understanding basically the communication to be a two-way. So we're sending them the information, they're giving us back the information. We want to update the model accordingly for the next phase of the work. So, and then the slides will show basically we take as built tasks as we go. We're feeding back into our digital site control model as well. So those information we publish to the Revizto information. So then we can get Daryl, the project manager, the site team to using the good solid informations to doing their coordination work. So the little thing I want to cover a little bit is like from my background as like BIM managers, but the thing is for us have very limited to driving the construction process. We want to be able to educate the project manager to driving the whole project because they have more communication range to communicate with a lot of outside parties and internal teams. So if we can get him, the project manager teams to using the tools, can bring the most values to the projects. So, and then I think the last thing I want to cover a little bit on the model structure, because I know in front of us, been seeing a lot of office here, a lot of people, they are BIM expert, they've been using Revizto for years. They've been, you can say like, I can finding the geometry very easy. I using work set, I using appearance profile. I've been using a lot of different fancy tools, can finding the geometry. But for me, I'm facing was the project teams, the project manager, site foreman. We want to make sure at the first step when they're using the tools, they want to finding the right informations. The first thing what I got is actually make a very clear model structure. So then people, when they start to using the tools without any BIM knowledge, open the Revizto, select the model trace, and they can find what they need. So while the project goes, like we establish like federated consultant model that we including all the consultant model they have got, and a federated temporary steel structure model, federated permanent steel model, federated reinforcement model, and like a Naylor Love builders work model. Basically, it's clear, it's plain English. It doesn't have much like a fancy naming convention, something like that. It's very plain. People can find the information as they go. And then share a little bit on why, from the digital perspectives we use in Revizto is, as you know, Revit is our primary software. From BIM side, the exporting procedures work for us is really great. It's simple. And from the digital point of view, we also easy to set up for the site team. We can create a whole bunch of viewpoints, and Daryl now can do that as well. Stamp tags, search set, appearance profile, easy to set up. And also the last thing was a great support from the Revizto team as well, because I've been down on the project. I know Michael, Rachel, and Michael, they've been helping us along to telling us the right thing to do for the right things to using the tools. So we've been through the journey. We've been really glad, the project team through this project, they use so much on the digital stuff. They bring lots of value through it. So this brought my part. I think I'll get Daryl to share a little bit on from the builder's perspectives about why you're using Revizto. Yeah.
the good things I found about Revizto, it was very easy to learn to navigate my way around, do more things, do more advanced things. It was actually very easy to learn. The really good thing was I could just do anything I wanted, and no matter what I did, I couldn't break it. I could just try anything, and with one click of the button, I'd go back to where I started, and nothing would be broken, nothing would be saved, no one would go, "What have you done?" And that made it really useful for me and people in the site team. It was really good for us to see buildability clashes because, as Sean alluded to, we brought in lots of different models. We were able to see different things and see how they actually work together. And for me, this was the first time I really found BIM that I could use myself and find out these issues. And they were easy to explain. No taking a screenshot of something you've seen in a model and putting it onto an RFI or sending an email to someone. It was there. You could save different ways of people come to the view. You could create issues. You could do all sorts of things to communicate the things and the buildability you're seeing within the model. So in terms of the builder's perspective, that's why I found Revizto really, really good. And I'll go through a bit more in detail now. I will swap over some laptops and I'll go through with a live Revizto demo on how I found it from a builder's perspective. Some of the things I'll talk about for people who've used BIM a lot will be like, oh yeah, okay, you've learned something. But I'll go through and how it actually how that translates from a design type thing to a construction and buildability and how it was useful there. So for me, this was my BIM learning journey. For me, I started this project. I started this, and like I said, I just played around with some models. So the first thing for me was learning a bit of navigation. And it didn't take me long. I started figuring out how to move around quite efficiently for someone who you might call an old dog learning some new tricks, because when I started in construction, I'd really never used BIM. In recent projects, I'd definitely used it. I've used it a lot, but I hadn't personally done it. I've done it through others, and I've always needed other people to do things for me. Whereas the difference for me here was I started learning to use the 3D space myself. And if I go through, we got given some models. We had architectural model, a structural model. We brought in other models. We brought in our temporary works model from our steel sub. We brought in reinforcing models from a reinforcing sub. We brought in the services, all the models. And there's a lot of information there. And so I had to learn how to find what I was looking for. That's all our models together. There's lots of stuff there. The architecture is mostly seen because it's on the outside. But, we had a structural model in the background, which is very good. But it doesn't have the detail. Obviously, the structural model won't show me the sort of things I need to know about buildability, about where the bolts are going to sit. Are they going to clash with something else? Because this is a heritage building. There's lots of heritage stone. There's lots of little bits and pieces inside that heritage stone where there's things are going to clash that we didn't know about until we got into the detail. So, and there's not just the permanent work. So this is just the amount of temporary steel that has been modelled to date. This is just temporary steel, and a lot of it's in, and our permanent works have to work around this, and this work has to work around stone and heritage things and timber and all sorts of stuff like that. So there is a lot in here. So for me, I had this learning journey to figure out how to look at it all. And as Sean alluded to, he set up the object tree with very clearly named models. Reinforcement, point cloud, site control. So these were really good for me to help find my way around. So I've got the temporary works model. I can find the individual models. So as Sean said, he set it up in a way that for me, I could find what I wanted. I don't want to see the temporary steel. I want to see, say, the reinforcement. It was very easy. And because I found it really easy and I showed it was easy to my site team, I had others start to use it who had never really touched sort of digital stuff as well. So it was navigation. I learned all sorts of things. I learned how to efficiently do cuts and all sorts of stuff. It's all new stuff to you, but it was actually really simple, and I knew I couldn't break it, so I could do whatever I wanted. But then I had to bring others on my journey, as I sort of talked about. So I started learning how to save a lot of viewpoints, and I just showed you a few viewpoints. I wasn't sure of my connectivity, so I didn't want to do too much zooming around. But so I started saving viewpoints of things when I'd hone in on something. I'd turn certain models on and off. I'd go through, say, to the north transept, which is on the outside of the building, and there's just the north transept with all the models turned on. But I'd start turning things on and off, and I'd save this point cloud. So I could say, hey, go and look at this saved viewpoint to one of my team. It'll show you what you need to see. So, and that was really easy for my team to click a button, get what they want to see, because there's a lot of information in this model, and there's lots of layers to that information, and unless you knew sort of how to navigate a little bit, it was quite hard to find. So I was able to do these kind of things, and this was my first communication to my team on how to get using it, and this is where it actually became useful. There's some of our point cloud. Our point cloud's not a scan of point cloud, it's multiple. There's 20 or 30 different scans because there's different layers to it. The first point clouds were done from the outside. There was some point clouds done through windows or openings. Once we got inside, we did some more point cloud scanning. Once we took down the heritage timber and took the flag out of the way, we did some more scanning. So, there's lots of layers to this point cloud once we go inside. And the point cloud was absolutely critical because once we got inside, we had a lot. This is inside the same area. Once we got inside, we had a lot more detail on point cloud that wasn't available when the design was completed. So we had this design documentation. It didn't have the dimensions. So we're able to go in through and see everything we needed to see. We could even see individual stones, so we knew what to line things up with. And it's really good. And the fact that we've got layers of point cloud, I knew how to turn off a point cloud and turn on another one to see what was behind a wall or in front of a wall was really easy using this object tree. And that sort of started bringing people on my journey. I started then using appearance templates so that I could say to someone, look, go to this viewpoint, just click on show the concrete, just click on show the reinforcing, just click on this. And those appearance templates made it easy for people who weren't savvy in BIM just to click on a button and see what they needed to see. And then they could understand the issues and look at the buildability. Because when we first started, I was looking at all the issues in the buildability, but I needed to bring my team on that because I wasn't going to be the only one doing it. I started doing it just to get this set up. But as the project manager, I needed to get others involved. And they were all a bit nervous about using BIM because it was new to them as it was new to me. But we've proven that old dogs can learn new tricks. We'd go inside, say this area here, and we'd turn the point cloud off and just turn on the new structure. We'd turn on the temporary steel. We'd turn on the permanent steel. And all this new structure had to be inside the stone walls. So we had to make sure using the point cloud that the concrete had enough cover of stone, averaging 200 mil, depending on where it was, 200 mil stone over top of the concrete. But we had grey temporary work steel, which had to be in while we're building the concrete. We had all sorts of things. And this really helped us look at the sequencing and the buildability. The reinforcing for this wall essentially couldn't come straight up in one hit, which is the way the guys like to do it, because there's a steel beam that it clashed with, a temporary works beam, and the beam couldn't come out until most of the concrete was cast. And so we figured out which reinforcing bars would have to be coupled because the engineer wouldn't let them all to be coupled. So we had to figure out which ones clashed and do that. So we brought in the reinforcing to do this exact same thing, and we could then look at the reinforcing and find out exactly what we had to do. So in terms of buildability, it was great that way, and I was able to bring others on this journey by showing them these, and they were able to understand. I could push this out, and then we, with the communicating this, I was saving the viewpoints. But then the issue tracker was really great. I'd see that this reinforcing bar clashed with this steel, and I could just put an issue stamp there for the reinforcing detail saying this bar has to be coupled. Actually, the first step was that. This bar, structural engineer, can we please couple this bar? And the structural engineer said yes, and then I'd put that issue up to the reinforcing detail saying this bar needs to be coupled, but the others can't. So for me, the greatest thing here was the way I was able to communicate all the stuff I'd seen, learning this sort of stuff. And by the way I'd done it, I was sort of teaching my team to do the same thing. So they were able to pick up the same ways of doing things quite simply, quite quickly doing it. A bit more on how we solve some of these challenges. I showed you some of the challenges, a bit more on how we solve them. Like I said, we had a point cloud data. We had consented drawings without dimensions. The concrete wall would say minimum 3 meters long. We had no grid line set out, and we had no set out of that concrete wall. Minimum 3 meters long within this stone wall. Minimum 700 foot. Those are the dimensions we had. We had to make that fit. So this is where Sean became really useful using that point cloud data. He started modeling these things we're seeing, and he started modeling them within the point cloud. He did all that in Revit outside of this space. But say for this north transept area, he was able to then produce these models that we're looking at with our concrete. He did these 3D drawings, and he did 2D drawings to go with. And we were able to get consultants back involved saying, look, here's our interpretation of your drawings, both from a heritage point of view, because the stone cover is going to be reducing here, from a structural point of view, because things didn't work out the way you've quite thought, the dimensions are changing a bit, from the architect's point of view. From everyone's point of view, we did our interpretation of how that would fit, and Sean modeled it all, and then he pushed that out to 2D drawings. So for that same area that we're looking at, all these 2 drawings were pushed out into Revizto, and that was the area that's the viewpoint. We're just looking at 2D drawings, but this time they're dimensioned. we showed the temporary works, we showed the permanent works, we showed other things, and that's because the temporary works was such a big driver on this project on how we built things. We couldn't just go in and build a permanent structure. So these 2D drawings then we could produce within Revizto as well. We could get, using the issue tracker, we could get people to comment on things. Hey, is it okay if this dimension changed? Is this okay because it doesn't fit the way you thought it was going to fit? And so Sean produced these 2D drawings. They were loaded into Revizto as well. So we could work within one space to look at the 3D and the 2D versions of the same interpretation. And this is how we were able to solve that issue of, we had design drawings, they weren't dimensioned. And how do we make that fit? How do we translate to the guys on site to what am I going to build and where's the grid line? So Sean set up a grid lines based on best fits, and then he set up what we called the concrete shapes. We called them concrete shapes because it was the shape of the concrete was sort of the first driver on how we made all this work. And it's worked out really well. We were able to create a feedback loops within Revizto, so we can talk to the consultants within Revizto to solve these, and we can then talk to the subcontractor about how that works. And then the 2D drawings could be pushed out, and the site team could actually just build straight off these drawings. So worked really, really well. We could do the same. Then we'd have this 2D shape. We push this out to the subcontractor saying, look, this is our concrete. This is where the concrete fits. And the rear bit is actually a structural steel frame that sits on top of the concrete. So your frame is going to have to tweak in sort of shape and size to fit within this. And so we'd have separate drawings for each part showing where everything fitted. And there's the steel frame that the steel contractor would then work to this shape because we know it fits. The point cloud was left on a lot of these drawings so people could see that it was going to fit. And it worked really, really well of a way of communicating and solving these issues. And for buildability, I knew it was starting to get quite successful when I started seeing, people in our own team who didn't really like technology logging into Revizto to have a look how it was going to fit. Or even more successfully when I saw a stonemason have Revizto on his phone and pointed at the wall going, oh, that's what the concrete's going there is going to look like. So that's where it started becoming quite successful when we were able to translate it from not just the BIM world, but to a construction world and how the guys on site could use it and making sure things fit. And as Sean said, there was a feedback loop from as built in stuff. As we would open up a wall and find even more, we could feedback stuff and make sure everything was up to date. So it worked really well. Well, it was working really well. Unfortunately, you've all heard the news about the cathedral, so it's got to a point. But the information's all saved and can be used again in the future. We know where everything fits. So I hope my little demo's been okay and helpful. If anyone wants to ask anything now, go ahead because I've got my laptop plugged in. No, all good? Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, pleased to come and present. For those of you who don't know me, Sam Henderson. I've been working in Christchurch in this industry for around 12 or so years now. And recently, since mid-2023, as an independent BIM management consultant. Today, I guess initially when Michael reached out to me, asked if I wanted to present, I was like, well, most of my projects at the moment are reasonably run-of-the-mill, they're not like cathedrals or stadiums or whatever, which we typically like to see at these kind of gigs. But fundamentally, a lot of the processes that I apply in those projects I bring to all projects anyway. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about just at a quite a high level, how to do the fundamentals well, how to bring BIM into the project, introduce it to the design team, and then get sort of maximum engagement out of the design team. And obviously, Revizto has a pretty big part to play in that. Some of you might have recently come to our BIM Sins event where we talked about sort of how to BIM, very much through the lens of the client-side PM type level. And I think all projects generally need to start there when having conversations about BIM at that client level. And so really it starts with a few just plain English type questions around what are the client's asset information requirements at the end of the project, what are the challenges of the project, are there any particular complexities, geometry, is it highly serviced, are there site constraints, etc., time and cost constraints. So when proposing BIM for a project, it's really important to be, I guess, talking in that language and asking those questions, and that's where the scope begins to be defined. And so, I recognize there's a lot of kind of experts in the room here, so this might not be news to a lot of you, but when it comes to appointing BIM and selecting it for a project, I can't emphasize enough really how important the timing is. And I guess just to kind of reinforce that point, because a lot of the projects I'm involved with, I still see this almost happening in the reverse order to what I'm explaining here. Fundamentally, the BIM scope, like, it needs to be defined, before designers are engaged, particularly the asset information requirements for the project, the level of detail that's going to be required, the collaboration expectations for the consultants. They actually just need to be signed up on those bases so that everyone's on the same page, and frankly, I guess that the client has some control over the outputs that come from the design team at the end of it. And so it's just really important, and so when design begins, everyone's on the same page, and it's smooth sailing. When it comes to defining the BIM scope, I think it's important to really, look at the big picture, like, do you think clients actually want BIM? I'm a BIM manager, and I don't necessarily think that they want BIM. What even is that 3-letter acronym? It sounds expensive. Do we need it? So I think really what clients want is they ultimately just want their building, right? They want the asset, they want good quality information about it, and they want a smooth, predictable ride along the way. And so BIM is just a vehicle to get them there. And so when, like I said before, when proposing BIM or trying to bring it into a project, it's important to talk in that language, to talk about the value that these digital processes can bring, the problems it's going to solve, and sort of how you're going to get there. So it's just a key kind of insight, I guess, into actually even getting BIM into a project. Once you do, happy days. The next step for the BIM manager, I guess, is introducing it to the design team. And I guess this is a little bit kind of tongue-in-cheek from a independent BIM manager's perspective, but often at this stage, I kind of get met with this perception that we're like some BIM police coming in to like point out problems and kind of make you look a bit average in front of the client and just be kind of a thorn in the side of the design team. It's just, in my mind, it's a complete, that's a long way from the truth. Like, we really are just here to be a part of the team, to work with the designers and hopefully let the designers actually do more designing and take some of that load off them. And so it's really important from my perspective for an independent BIM manager to build good rapport with the designers, understand where they're working, what challenges they're facing, and also focus our efforts in the same way. And in that sense, you're going to get the most engagement from the design team and better results. I did leave out the bit about getting Revizto into the project, so I think sometimes that's an interesting topic too, but an interesting time we've got Revizto into the project. I guess Revizto from the BIM perspective is the central kind of hub for collaboration, communication, and coordination. So it's really important. I mean, this might seem like pretty obvious stuff, but for me, nailing these sort of fundamentals really has good outputs later on. So to start with, it's really important to have a good onboarding process with the design team. So here's Michael giving our team on this particular project just a nice and polished how-to session right at the start of the project. And I like to record these sessions, make sure that the link is always available for the design team to refer back to. And so I'm just going to grab some water. And when any new staff are brought into the project, it's like, send an email, hey, you've been added to the project. By the way, here's a link. This is from our onboarding session. This covers everything you need to know about how to use Revizto. And I get really good feedback on that. People just like to be able to look at a video in their own time. And also at that link, we'll make sure that the guides for how to use the tool are there as well. If you can just remove all kind of barriers to entry, make it nice and easy for people to use, you're more likely to get better collaboration, better engagement with the tool. Again, so Revizto relies heavily on, having updated models. And like, this might seem obvious, but I like to make it super clear when and how models are to be published for the design team. I find sometimes this is kind of like a junior type task and it's not always smooth sailing. So I just have like really clear step-by-step instructions in my BEPs around how to share the models. And I even like to just put a wee reminder in their calendar to make sure that they just get a notification on the day that they're due to share the models. And that just means that we're more likely to have the Revizto environment up to date, predictable, more likely people to come in and use it. Yeah, actually, it was interesting hearing some of the updates about what's coming in Revizto with this latest update, because some of the next points are now going to be kind of redundant because you've kind of fixed it, which is quite cool. So anyway, I like to have overnight publishing again. So whenever design teams or contractors share a model, they just know that it's going to be in Revizto the next day. So when it comes to setting up the environment itself, there's a few little bits and pieces I like to set up that again I get good feedback on, and people are more likely to come and use it. So I think a lot of people are still looking at 2D drawings a lot, and sort of know the project through that lens as well. So this is just a simple bunch of viewpoints that are set up within Revizto where people can just quickly jump straight to the grid line that they're interested in. For those people that might be like new to Revizto or not quite as savvy at navigating, this is just a quick way to get right to where you want to go. And the same goes for floor plans, just having pre-made views set up with floor plans ready to go. And I often encourage the architect to be exporting DWG floor plans that we can link in to just give that extra layer of information in the models. And then moving into the 2D, so with each 3D model export, I will also have a range of views set up in the sheets set up in the federated model, generally with all of the disciplines turned on, so you have that sort of federated viewpoint. What might be like services, all the services in the ground, or even just ground floor plans with all the symbols, room names, everything turned on. Gives you quite a rich viewpoint where you can look at everything in one go. And I guess one of the first things I always see services coordinators from main contractors do is like grab all the PDFs from the services trades and overlay them together in Bluebeam to look at like what they're all doing together, particularly when you go into coordinate seismic and things. And so I just have one of these. It's to typically have one of these views in the Revizto as well, like all the ceiling services turned on in a 2D. It can just help paint a big picture of what's going on. And then the same again, all the 2D sheets with every grid kind of elevated, and all the disciplines turned on. So these drawings are updated every day with the latest model drops. So for me as a BIM manager, a lot of my the work that I'm doing is I still would like to do a lot of visual checks. Don't rely too heavily on the clash detection to find all the issues. I think there's just a lot of context that comes with experience that's just easier to find looking through the model yourself. And so appearance profilers are really powerful. I have a whole bunch of just quick appearance profilers that it can help me skip between different checks in the model. So at a click of a button, I can be looking at foundations versus pipes. And then another click of a button, I might be looking at columns and beams versus wall lines, and then using different colors to really make them pop. So, you can do a really quick check here and spot any like columns out of alignment or walls out of alignment or something like that. So I think appearance profilers can really speed up the amount of review that you can do in a short amount of time. So yeah, I like to have quite a few of those set up. It might be just ceilings and beams highlighted, so you can quickly spot whether the ceiling, the beams are hanging below the ceilings or something like that. So appearance profilers are very powerful, and colors. Yeah, again, it might seem like basic stuff, but I think it all really helps in the long term. So yeah, I like to have a bright structure, and then a contrasting color for things like fire linings. So you can quickly see flanges might be protruding, or any sort of buildability issues like that. And then I've probably got like hundreds of these examples, but I'm a big advocate of like lintels being modeled, particularly in projects where there's like low limited ceiling to floor space. That just catches those on-site problems later. In this particular project, I've quite enjoyed having the ceiling grid modeled, It's obviously really helped with the reflected ceiling plane coordination. And then again, just like the use of colors, having red access panels in the model just means you can quickly scan over top of the services and make sure anything that needs access has access allowed for and has clear space around it. And then, as Chris mentioned before, they've now built this in, but another just small way of making the consultant's life easier, I guess, in the issue tracker space, just having pre-made filters set up so that they can just jump straight to their own issues. Like, the stuff isn't rocket science, but it's just saves a little bit of time if you compound that over a long period of design. Like, it helps. So quick, I guess, particularly for the MEP trades, they can just quickly switch between their disciplines that they might be working on. And then when it comes to the issues themselves, not every project, it depends on the project, but I'm quite guilty of, I like to have I spend a lot of time, I guess I'm trying to say, on each issue, making sure that the description's really clear. The title needs to be either a really clear action item or a question that needs to invoke a response if you want to get it moving. I spend a bit of time getting a good angle on it in the image, really pointing out the obvious. It's interesting sometimes how what you're saying can be interpreted in a way that you weren't necessarily interpreting it. So just making it really obvious means that the person that's looking at it and is responsible for it can just really quickly address it without there's no ambiguity. And so again, if they can just quickly resolve it and move on to the next one, then you're getting better results out of the design team. So I think it's worth spending a bit of time just making the issues like really clear. And obviously also the priority is really important. If you've got a whole lot of issues on the wrong priority, the person resolving them is going to get disillusioned pretty quickly. So I like to emphasize that. And then in terms of coordination meetings, when it comes to agendas, like, it's really important just to only have issues on the list that actually require multidisciplinary input. That's the whole reason why you're getting together in the meeting. There's no point in having issues that, can be resolved single-handedly by someone that doesn't require discussion, right? That's just a waste of people's time. So that's probably the most important thing, I think, around issues for coordination meetings. I typically find around 30 to 40 issues an hour is good for design phase, and roughly half that for a construction phase project. I think you just tend to get in the weeds a bit more in the construction phase, and so everything takes a bit longer. And then, I'll start the meeting with a bit of a summary of the key findings from the last coordination cycle. And then when we get into the issues, it's like a courtesy. It's just good practice to, start with the trades with the least amount of issues so they can drop off the call or whatever. And it's a bit of a feature request. At the moment, what I'm doing is I'm exporting a report that sets the agenda, but I find that a snapshot of the, how the issue resolution's trending, that how many new issues we had, how many were solved, how many, and then a bit of a snapshot overall of the total amount of projects. We can see here how many have closed, how many are still open or in progress or whatever, how they're trending over time. Like, the clients and the PMs don't necessarily feel the need to come to the coordination meetings, but for them to have a quick snapshot at the start, at the meeting agenda, to see what we're working on and then see how we're trending is like powerful for them. But at the moment, I'm stitching these two things together with PDFs, because you can, I don't know, maybe I'm missing some functionality, but you export your dashboard and then you export your issues, and I just bring them together. But it'd be cool to be able to do that in one export. And then again, with the minutes, they're just the issues exported again, but with just really clear action items and issue descriptions. The clearer things are, the more likely they are to be resolved. And so just to wrap up, just to make one point, I guess one of the other big aspects to good BIM management is knowing what to report and when. And this is a big topic, and I'm just going to cover like a very small part of it. But I guess, BIM managers, they need to be attending the design team consultant-led meetings, really just as a fly on the wall to understand what it is that the design team, where they're currently working, what their challenges are that they're facing, and so that we can also focus our efforts in the same place. And that way, again, you're just going to get better results if you're identifying the topical and the key challenges. And so I guess some preliminary for me, generally what that looks like is making sure that the models are all set up correctly. They've got consistent grids and coordinates per discipline. And then you start to look at those primary sort of structural and architectural elements and looking for alignments and making sure that that's trending well. And then in developed, you start to get into seismic strategy, zoning, you're looking at those primary services and making sure that all those reticulation zones are, making sense against the structure and things as well. And then detail's really getting, I guess, right into the detail, making sure that the models are compliant with the BP, that the modeling's accurate and complete, and then you're doing your assessments of the asset information as well. Generally, I just do visual model reviews throughout developed, depending on the project. Might bring in clash checking towards the end of developed. But yeah, so I guess that's it in a nutshell. And just don't dump a whole bunch of clashes onto a BIM modeler with no context or no correct priorities. So it doesn't help the project at all. So just understanding that fact is a big plus as well. So thanks for your time, everyone.
Good morning. How are you doing? My name's Johnny Tulloch. I'm from Cupix. I'm basically just warming up for Anton as he sets up his laptop here. So good to be here in Christchurch this morning. Anton's going to present on how he's using Cupix to do model validation. Now, Cupix is a 360 reality capture platform, and we use 360 cameras to go out and very quickly capture site conditions. We're typically using construction, but Anton's going to show how Warren Armani are basically using it for some of their model validation. So I'll hand over to Anton. Good luck.
Thanks, mate.
No worries.
Terrifying? All right, fine. Don't worry. Cool. So going to share a little bit of how reality capture fits in with a design practice, I guess, and where it sits in projects for us. So I've kind of got 3 key topics I'll be running through today to highlight those things. So I'll be talking about our team that sits inside Warren Armani that enables the digital processes on projects. I'll start talking about the projects and workflows themselves, and then I'll move on to some future innovation that we're looking at and how we're going to integrate it into our projects in the future. So first up is our advanced BIM team. So most of you will be fairly familiar with Warren Armani. Being here in Christchurch, so I don't really need to talk about that too much, but our goal is to be the most influential design practice in the Pacific Rim. And I think technology and innovation is a real driver of enabling that. Our journey with technology kind of transitioned in 2013, really early. Jason Howden joined the practice, and we transitioned from MicroStation into Revit at that point in time. So we've had a really accelerated journey, I think, with technology over the last kind of 10 to 11 years. So yeah, moving through time, Navisworks and Revizto, carrying on to Revizto 5, enabling a lot more. Revizto on its own and enabling clash detection was really, really powerful, and being able to drop Navisworks as part of the process really sped up our process and enabled project teams a lot. And then this year is where we've started talking with the Cupix team and looking at how we're going to engage reality capture as part of our process. So these are kind of 3 images that show how we're currently using reality capture on our projects at the moment. We'll hire a Leica RTC scanner, getting really detailed point cloud scans of heritage projects and other things. I think Daryl's presentation earlier was fantastic use of point clouds on site and how it enables project teams. The center one with the robot dog and our BLK scanner that we have in-house on site. That was to, I believe, get some preliminary findings of what was inside the cathedral before people were actually allowed inside there. The dog is pretty terrifying as it walks up a timber floor corridor, if anyone has experienced it before. And then finally on the end is me on site with the Cupix camera. And while it's not as, I guess, fancy looking as the other two, I think there's something really nice about how simple it is and how you can kind of just walk around site with this little camera and you're capturing an enormous amount of data and what your as-built condition is. So yeah, as I mentioned, Anton Shaw, I've been in the industry 15 years. I've been 4.5 years at Mahoney. I guess my passion for technology and innovation started in my first week at the job. I got told to change the date on 100 DWD drawings, and that was horrible. And so what I ended up doing was I rebuilt the title block, made it a field, the date updated every time someone jumped in that DWG, and no one ever had to do it again. And when my boss asked me to do it the next week, I said to him it was already done, and he didn't really believe me. But it was great from there. Moving on, our team. So I'm just one of 7 of us. 2 of us in Wellington, 3 of us in Christchurch, 1 based in Australia and 1 based in Queenstown. So I think we have a relatively small digital advanced BIM team for the projects that we work on and the scale of things that we work on. What I think is an enabler of that is what we've affectionately named SAM, which stands for Super Awesome Machine. So we have six machines that currently live in different places all around New Zealand. And it's these machines that really supercharge our teams and give them a lot of superpowers on projects. Like Chris mentioned, we utilize a lot of automation overnight. It does a lot of heavy lifting for our teams in the background. And when it's all running smoothly, you're not hearing a peep. It's all going well and everyone's all good with it. As soon as it fails on the first night, you really get quite a reaction from the teams. Cool. So moving on to projects and workflows. So we've just started this journey with Cupix, so we haven't really used it in anger or like heavily on projects yet, but I'm seeing a lot of potential of where it can sit inside of our design phases. So I'm going to talk about 3 different workflows today: existing conditions and capturing that, defect inspections, and model validation for digital deliverables or outputs at the end of it. So existing conditions, I'm just going to move into the project itself. One of the key features that I see from Cupix is its integration into Revizto. At Mahoney, we're already really heavy users of Revizto. So where I see Cupix fitting in is how it can enable that process for our project teams. So this feature of batch attaching pano photos into issues, I think is extremely powerful. We've got a workflow that we've established on projects, and I'll run through that in a little bit. But the fact you can kind of select your issues and then push a whole bunch of photos onto them, I think is such a seamless workflow. So this is a heritage project that I mentioned before that we captured with quite a detailed point cloud scan. I mean, the 2 presentations today have been fantastic with all of these features and explanations of them. So again, appearance templates are super powerful. Being able to overlay point clouds on top of the model, make sure the modeling teams are modeling aligned or either modeling everything that's there as well. Having a point cloud can often show where there may be missing model elements inside of the project, which is super powerful. We established a workflow on this project where I think this Cupix integration of attaching the pano photos onto these issues would be very, very valuable for the team. So we came up with a set of stamps. These stamps are essentially capturing different things inside the heritage building. So there was removal of heritage fabric and salvaging it, keeping heritage fabric in place, removal and store it, or removal and dispose of it. So having those different workflows inside of the project enabled the contractor to go around and mark those things and understand what was going on. You can also have QR codes set up, barcodes and things like that for those items so you can reference them whenever you need to. But the powerful part of Cupix and where I see it fitting in is you can attach photos from on site as you're walking around onto those items, so you don't have to capture separate photos. You can get all of that heritage fabric attached to that issue inside Revizto. And then this is the workflow that we had come up with. It was a bit more manual in the background. It did have some automation to it, but essentially I could create a family inside of our federated model that was a photograph. And then with that, you can make a stamp on top of it, and you can attach a 360-degree photo from your point cloud scanner at that point. So this was kind of the initial concept I had in place for utilizing what we're already capturing with our point cloud scans and all of that existing data, and how we can give our project team access to it. And I think Cupix just elevates that because you can start attaching photos over time. Next up, I'll just talk a little bit about defect inspections. So Cupix to Revizto, this is the latest and greatest. I mean, talk to the Cupix team afterwards, but there's now two-way integrations between Cupix and Revizto, which I think is going to be very powerful. So you can go round and capture your site inside the Cupix app. You can then start making issues inside of their app that are directly going to be made inside Revizto afterwards. So you can be capturing that content and marking it up and looking at it in reality on your PC, and then transferring it over to Revizto for the collaboration team to be looking at it afterwards. And I think that's the key feature here that we'll be using to make this process work. So on-site defecting, I've just gone around to on one level. I don't know if you saw it quickly on that little map there, but we captured a huge amount of data very quickly. I was on site for half an hour and I managed to scan that whole level and capture like 50 plus photos that are 360. So you're capturing all kind of corners of that level very, very quickly on site. And you can take all of that information back to the office, and then go and review it in place as well. So just while I was walking around, Cupix has a feature that if you pull your phone out while you're scanning, it will go and stitch that photo over top, and it'll give you a lot more detailed area from that photo, because your iPhone will typically have a high resolution. So you can see there, it stitched it in place, and I was able to make an issue saying there's beam damage. And at that point, if you can translate these things into Revizto, you could start creating reporting, and you can start giving it out to your contractors to review these things as well. And you've got all the associated photos and all the associated data with that. While I was just walking around, I guess you can kind of do off-site defecting at the same time. So I was just kind of walking through the model, seeing how well it aligned with the model next to it. And as I kind of just walked down this corridor, I was able to quickly see that there wasn't corner protection on one of the corners. It was missing altogether. So you're able to like click that model element in the model space, and you can transfer it over to the reality capture side and say, this is where it's meant to be. You can then mark it up and send it over to Revizto and things like that at the same time. And then this is on that same project. The contractors have data stations on site. Every time I've been to site, these have been heavily used. There's always someone at them. There's always content up on screen. I imagine you start getting Cupix involved in this as well. So rather than just being predominantly Revizto, you're able to go back and see captures over time. I think that's primarily where Cupix is used a lot at the moment, is iterative captures of site. So you can go back through all of that history if you would like to, but you can also look at it versus the digital elements at the same time on the same data station. So those things like defecting other bits, they can all be there. All of that information's on tap for whoever needs it on site at whatever point in time. And then I'm just going to talk about model validation a little bit. So you're capturing huge amounts of data very quickly with walking around on site with the Cupix camera and the platform. Using that to validate models is very good, essentially. You'll get as-built models of sites, but validating that actual as-built condition has been captured is critical to those being an accurate deliverable. So there's kind of two processes in here that Cupix enables, in my opinion. The first one is just kind of a visual check. These dry line pipes were extremely important on these archive levels. So you're able to go and see how well the teams have modeled the shop drawing models against what's been installed on site to some degree there. That little brighten up feature was fantastic as well, because you can go to like a dark corner and click it, and you can actually kind of see stuff inside the photos really well. And then going along a bit further, here's a corner that I found, and you can see that the shop drawing model, like it may not be critical or it may be, but it is actually slightly different to what they installed on site. And then you can have that question, does that need to be updated? On this project, there was an extremely high level of detail required for our operational digital twin. So we can start asking those questions of the operations team. Is it critical to have everything to the millimeter accurate, or are some things like this okay to be different in that scenario? Next up is a computational checking of models. So essentially, as you're walking around site, it's pretty powerful in that sense that it captures a point cloud at the same time. I think what's really important to be aware of here, though, is that picking the right tool for the right job at the right time. So the Cupix scan is accurate to 20 to 30 millimeters roughly, but also point cloud scans are millimeter accuracy. So making sure you're using the right tool at the right time is important here. But being able to utilize point cloud scans for model validation and checking to see deviation from models to what's been installed on site, I think is extremely powerful. And a thing to note there is you can pull other point cloud scans into this platform and utilize all of the data together rather than it being siloed. And then my last topic that I'm going to be talking about is future innovation. So this is what we're currently working on and what we're enabling on projects, and kind of where I see things going with the data that we're going to have available from Cupix and what will happen in the future. So I've got 3 parts that I'm going to talk to. One is Power BI and reporting out of Revizto. The next will be the Site Insights platform out of the Cupix tools. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about mobile devices and what's possible on site with them these days. So I'll move into Power BI. So project dashboards. I've been working quite a lot with our design teams recently about project dashboards and how we can utilize all of this information we have in Revizto. I think data is on tap these days. Data gets generated so quickly and so much. And it's about finding the relevant information out of that data and then presenting it in a consistent way, in a concise format for the right audience. So Power BI has really enabled us to curate pages or data sets to the right audience at the right time, plus giving them tools to really drive into the detail if they want to. At a high level, some members want to look at everything. Some people want to look at their specific disciplines. Some people want to look at different phases, and all of those different workflows that are happening on projects is really hard to capture sometimes. So Power BI allows you to really cross and filter this data to be what you need to be seeing for what you're doing. The second part to that is I know that we just saw heat maps inside of the Revizto platform. So what I've also done is built heat maps outside of Revizto itself as well, because not everyone is always inside the app or in the tool. Some of the project leads just want to know at a high level where their teams are working and what's going on and where the stuff is outstanding. So what I've got here is a set of heat maps that exist inside of Power BI with the same set of filters, and you can start just filtering down to what you need to see out of it, and you can check the age of issues at the same time. And from there, those little pins that exist on the floor plate, you can click on those, and at the top, you'll get a lot of information about that particular issue, like where it exists, who it's assigned to, etc. And at the end of it, there's a link. So if you have Revizto open on your PC at the same time you have this report open, you can click that link and it'll open that issue inside Revizto for you. So it's not like you're too disjoined, it's just another thing to enable the platform. And then moving into Site Insights. So this is off the Cupix web browser at the moment. This is using that point cloud data to understand progress and what's being installed. So they're able to go and compare that point cloud data to the model. And if there's points in a location of ductwork, that ductwork's likely installed in that location at that point in time. So you can start using that data to validate what's been installed on site and the progress of things. I think pulling that out of the platform and having it alongside the Revizto data inside of a Power BI dashboard is extremely powerful as well. And you're kind of creating this consistent location where people can approach to get the information they need from it. So having those API connections and all of that data available is super powerful for projects. And then the last 2 slides is kind of augmented reality and where I see like mobile devices going on site and what's possible. So when I saw this video, I was like fascinated. Like to me, this is amazing. Like essentially having X-ray vision of walls or what's been done on site previously to the completed state. So you can take your iPad and you can walk up to a location and you can just go back in time and look through what's happened in that area or what's happened on the other side of the wall or what structure's in there. I imagine walking around site doing like a pre-line inspection and capturing a huge amount of data of what's inside these places, and then we just how to use that later on if they're going to go do a renovation of an area, go and check what's inside the wall, make sure that it's all good and carry on again. And so that alongside, I think Revizto's AR app at the same time is also pretty powerful. So this is on site on that archives project. Took the device down. This was extremely easy to set up again. Kind of just overlaid the model on top of that site condition and you are able to validate if services have been installed correctly or not at that point. The other fascinating part to it is it's a construction site. And as I slid that slider forward, you can kind of get an idea of what the fit out is going to be like in this space. So you can start using it for clients and other people as well to give them an idea of what they might be getting in the space at the same time. But it was hugely valuable just to understand if services and other things had been installed as per the model or drawings at that point. And that's me. So thanks everyone.